Hey friends, this is Dr. Jackson with your spoonful of PBJ for the week. And this week, listen, I need to talk to y'all. Before this election day comes, before these results come out, before we know anything about what's next, I need to have a little talk with you. Can we talk? Now, y'all know this is not a political message because I don't do that. You can go find that in plenty of places. But what I want to do is just encourage your heart. I had to find a way to prepare myself for this week. You know, I've noticed over the years that our American elections have become more and more contentious. And I'm sure that there are people on all sides of everything that would agree with me that this is the most contentious so far. So in preparation, before we know the outcome, before November 3rd, before we know what's next, we got to prepare our hearts and we need to prepare our minds. And I just want to share with you all one philosophy, one value that I'm holding on to as we prepare to see what is next in all of this that's going on in our country. I have made the decision for myself that no matter what happens, I'm not going to allow myself to get too high and I'm not going to allow myself to get too low. What does that mean? 2020 has taught us that you cannot predict what's coming next. 2020 has taught us that circumstances and situations and challenges can come out of nowhere. 2020 has taught us how to be resilient and how to survive. 2020 has taught us that we've got to preserve and protect our peace. So before we get to election day, before we know anything about the outcome, before we know anything about what's next, I need to make a decision right now how I'm going to respond. My response doesn't depend on who wins. My response doesn't depend on whether we even know who wins or not by Wednesday. My response does not depend on the outcry of anybody else. My response is sure and it's already decided. I'm not going to get too high. And honey, I am not going to get too low. I have determined that I'm going to stay in my space of grace. I am going to stay in my place of hope and faith. I know that after November 3rd, there are people with differing opinions that I still need to love on. After November 3rd, there are people with differing thoughts and opinions and votes that I still need to serve. After November 3rd, I still have purpose, not just with people who agree with me, but with people in general. After this election is over and breath is still in my body, there is still love for me to show. There is still courage for me to display. There is still work for me to do. And I am not going to allow this decision to change who I am in my heart. Friend, we got to protect our hearts. We got to guard our hearts with all diligence right now because there's enough going on that will change a person. But I can't afford to change who I am in my heart because if I change who I am in my heart, then I've just disrupted my destiny and I am not willing to let it happen. So I encourage you now, before an outcome, before election day, before we know what's next, make a decision right now that you're going to stay in your space of grace. You are going to stay in your place of faith. You are going to stay in your place of peace and in your place of hope because guess what? Moving out of that helps no one. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the people around you. It doesn't help our country. It has gotten us nowhere. So I've decided I'm going to be prayerful, that I'm going to be firm on my foundation, that my faith is going to be strong. I'm reading, I'm filling my mind with things that will strengthen me. No matter what the outcome is, I'm ready because I know that my hope and my future is secure. So I'm not going to allow myself to get too high and I'm not going to allow myself to get too low because at the end of the day, after we move through this, I still need to love on all of y'all, whether we agree or not. So let's do that. Anybody with me? Let's do it. Regardless of the outcome, regardless of what happens, regardless of the answer, let's make a decision that we're going to stay in our space of grace and we're going to continue to show love, because that is what's going to make the difference. I love y'all. Have a good week. Determine right now that you're going to have a good week and that your hope is not broken and we're going to be okay. I'll talk to you next week, because we're going to be right here back together next week this time.